in a pretty clearly unconstitutional way. So this is in The Intercept. A North Carolina city bans protests protecting Confederate monument. A North Carolina city is using a restrictive ordinance to outlaw protest, threatening to arrest anyone who even attempts to peacefully protest without a permit as part of an effort to protect a Confederate monument that sits outside its courthouse. The Alamance County Sheriff's Office said in a Facebook post on Friday that permits to protest in the city of Graham will not be granted for the foreseeable future, adding that anyone who attempts to protest without a permit will be in violation of the order and arrested. There has been a heavy police presence around the monument, which features a statue of a Confederate soldier with a rifle located in downtown Graham for several days now. Graham, whose population is around 15,000, also declared a state of emergency and set a 9 p.m. curfew over the weekend, which was then canceled on Monday night. So, they go on to explain that what they do is if anybody shows up to protest, they're arrested. But then the argument people would make is you got to go through the proper channels in order to be allowed to protest. Okay, well then people apply for permits. The problem is none of the permits are being granted at all. So you've set up a situation where you've de facto banned protests. Where you say, hey, in theory we allow protests, but we're going to arrest you on site if you show up without a permit, and if you apply for a permit, we're not going to give you one. So that is effectively banning protests. Now, where are all my free speech warriors at? Where's Rafe Dubin? Where's Ben Shapiro? Where's all the people on the right who claim that they care so deeply about freedom of speech? You know, it's curious. They only seem to bring it up when it's pink-haired college kids setting up safe spaces on campus. That's the only time they bring it up. They never seem to bring it up when it is actual, literal free speech violations, as in the government taking away people's rights for free speech and free protest. Weird, they're nowhere to be found. Clear violations, not just of the principle of freedom of speech, the legality of freedom of speech is being violated. I don't hear anything. I don't hear Dickie McGee's axe. Now, you might say, well, hold on, Kyle, this story just happened, so obviously, I mean, maybe they're not keeping up with the news, maybe they didn't see it, whatever. You got to give them a pass on this. Obviously, they still care about this issue. This is a brand new thing that just happened, and they didn't see it yet. Wrong. So in 2017, this happened as well. Republican lawmakers in 5 states proposed bills to criminalize peaceful protests. Now, in 2017, similarly, this was a direct reaction to Black Lives Matter movements, the No Dakota Access Pipeline protests, but also it was immediately after the women's marches. So it was right after this, a number of circumstances popped up which led to unrest and protests, and Republican states immediately sprung into action and said, let's find a backdoor way of banning protests. So in North Dakota, for example, there was a bill that would allow people driving to run over and kill protesters obstructing a highway because they were protesting on highways. And they say, oh, as long as it was an accident.